In 2017, 5 men were arrested in the city of Monsumano, Italy. They had all been charged with conspiracy to commit murder and attempted murder. The news made front-page headlines across the country. People everywhere were shocked by the brazen daylight crime that had taken place and were equally astounded at how it had been thwarted by the authorities. But what made this case even more shocking than most was that the target of these would-be assassins had actually been a police officer. And not just any police officer, mind you, but one of the most respected members of the local force. It was only after investigating further that the true extent of what these men had planned came to light. For weeks, they had actually been laying low in their hotel rooms and were ready to carry out the hit once the officer left his home. They were so serious about eliminating him that they'd brought enough firepower to get the job done. As soon as he was gone, they were going to storm his house and shoot him dead in front of his family. Even worse, they had specifically chosen this moment because they knew he would be alone. His wife had left town for the weekend with their children, and their home would be empty. Now it sounds like something straight out of an action movie, except that it isn't. It's reality, and it happened in broad daylight. But who were these attackers? What did they want with the policeman? And why did they choose such a violent way to deal with him? Let me tell you the whole story from start to finish, so you can make your own mind up. Let us go back to March 2017, when a man called Massimo Iosa decided to treat himself to a nice meal at a restaurant near his home. He was celebrating the fact that he had just got back from a vacation with his family and was feeling particularly pleased with himself. He and his wife had taken their kids to the Caribbean, and the trip had been everything they'd hoped for. But little did Massimo know that while he was away, someone had been watching his home. A group of men had been lurking around, waiting for him to leave. As soon as he showed up, though, they disappeared into thin air. Massimo lived in a small village outside of Naples, the capital of Italy's Campania region. It was a quiet place where nothing much ever happened. That's why he was so surprised when over the next few days, he saw the same men hanging around again and again. At first, he tried to ignore them, but then they started following him and his friends. He even caught them taking pictures of him and his family, and felt a growing sense of unease. Who were these guys and what did they want with him? Well, it turned out that the answer was right under his nose the whole time. Unbeknownst to him, Massimo was a key witness in a major criminal trial that was about to take place. The trial in question involved the local mafia clan known as the Casalisi. They were responsible for all sorts of illegal activities in the area, including extortion, money laundering, drug trafficking, and even murder. For years, they had operated with impunity, but things began to change when a man called Giuseppe Sadala decided to turn informant. Giuseppe wasn't just any guy off the street. He's the nephew of the mafia boss. He'd been groomed for greatness since birth, and was well on his way to taking over the family business. But then something unexpected happened. He fell in love with a woman named Tiziana, who just so happened to be the sister of a police officer. The two men quickly became friends, and eventually Giuseppe revealed his secret to Tiziano's brother, Massimo. This marked the beginning of the end for the Casamusima clan, as the police were able to use Giuseppe's inside information to bring down the entire organization. However, this didn't come without its complications. Giuseppe had made too many powerful enemies along the way, and they wanted revenge. As soon as word got out that he was working with the police, they threatened his life and forced him to go into hiding. This is where Massimo came in. He agreed to testify against the Casamusimas in court, which put him in the line of fire. The men who had been following him belonged to the very same clan, and they were just there to get to know him better. They had been sent to kill him. Massimo was horrified, but luckily he had backup. The police were aware of the threat he was under and had assigned several officers to protect him. So even though the men had followed him home that night, they were unable to get inside. However, they were willing to wait as long as necessary. They knew that sooner or later Massimo would leave the house, and that was when they would strike. The police had planted a GPS tracker on Massimo's car, so they knew exactly when he would leave and where he would go. Meanwhile, Massimo was completely oblivious and went about his daily routine as usual. He took his kids to school, went to work, and picked up groceries. All the while, his attackers were following him and waiting for their chance to make their move. Finally, the day came when Massimo made the mistake of going to that restaurant. The men had been watching him for days and knew exactly where he would go. Now that he was there, it was only a matter of time before they made their move. Luckily for Massimo, the police were on the case and had already made several arrests. When the men left the restaurant, they were met with a roadblock and taken into custody. Turns out they hadn't been so patient after all. It had only been a few hours since Massimo had left his house, and the police had managed to beat them to the punch. Of course, this wasn't the end of it. The police wanted to find out who had sent these men and what their ultimate goal was. After questioning them, it became clear that they were just pawns in a larger game. Their boss had ordered them to kill Massimo, and they had no choice but to obey. But who was this mysterious boss? And why did he want Massimo dead? To find out, the police needed to go to the source. They traveled to the men's hometown of Caserta and began questioning people in the community. Eventually, they got a lead on a local businessman named Michel Iovine. He was a known associate of the Camorra and had been involved in several crimes in the past. The police decided to pay him a little visit and see what he knew. But when they arrived at his house, they found something they weren't expecting. Michel had taken his own life. It was clear that he had done this to avoid being arrested. But before he died, he had written down the name of the man who had given him the order. The police raced home and arrested him. His name was Francesco Bidonetti, and he was one of the most powerful members of the Camorra. But now it was too late. The police had closed in, and he wouldn't be able to escape for much longer. When questioned, he admitted everything. Not only had he ordered the hit on Massimo, but he had also been behind several other murders. He was so dangerous that the police decided to transfer him to a different prison for his own safety. However, this proved to be a bad decision. A few months later, he was found dead in his cell. It looked like a suicide, but the police never really knew what had happened. To this day, they suspect that Francesco's brother Carmine had come to avenge him and killed him. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. The damage had already been done. Massimo's life would never be the same. But despite all the danger he had faced, he'd never back down. He continued to testify against the Camorra and helped put away some of the most dangerous criminals in Italy. In the end, it was worth it. Thanks to his bravery, the streets were a little safer, and the people of Caserta could finally sleep easy. As for Massimo himself, he moved to a new town and changed his name. He didn't want to live in fear anymore and was determined to start fresh. However, he never forgot what had happened to him and the sacrifices that had been made for him. He visited the graves of the officers who had died protecting him and vowed to honor their memory by living his life to the fullest. The mafia may have tried to take him out, but they never broke him. Instead, they made him stronger and more determined than ever. So what can we learn from this story? Well, for one thing, never underestimate the power of the mafia. These guys are ruthless and will stop at nothing to protect their own. Secondly, always be aware of your surroundings. You never know when you might need to defend yourself or your loved ones. Finally, don't let fear control you. Live your life to the fullest and never give up hope. Thanks for watching, and please remember to share this video with others. It really helps us grow. Till next time.